Good morning. Good morning. As you get here, make sure you say hello. Let me know that you're here. Give me just a moment to get everything started. How are you doing this morning? I hope you are having a fabulous morning. Maybe it's not morning where you are. All right, let's see. Am I live? I believe so. Let me do one more thing. Hold on. Hold the phone. Hold on a second. There we go. All right, perfect. Perfecto. All right, there we go. All right, so as you get here, make sure that you say hello and let me know that you're here. I'm in Georgia, for those that aren't familiar with me, and it's an amazing day. We've had storms, we've had a lot of rain, and it means that the grass is so green and so beautiful. And I'll have to share when I was I was probably in the third or fourth grade. I don't remember when I was young anyway. My family moved from Georgia to Florida because my grandfather owned a service station. Back then, it was a service station where they came out and they pumped the gas and they did all the things, right? Which is very foreign to a lot of people these days because it was amazing. I remember as a little child going to the gas station with my mom, and when back then it was a service station, right? So you would pull up at the pump and you didn't get out of the car and do nothing. They came out, they would wash your windows, they would put gas in the car, they would check your oil, they would put air in your tires, they would do all this thing. It was this huge service that they would do. And my grandfather owned one of those, and he was trying to make some changes with it. And so we actually moved to Florida for my dad to be able to help him with this business. And one of the things, even as a child, that was amazing to me was when we would come back to visit family, it looked like as soon as we hit a certain place in Georgia, it's like all of a sudden the grass was so green, the trees were so bright and brilliant, and I had this intrigue with the colors and the shapes of things. Because in Florida, where we lived, we were in Tampa, St. Pete area, and it was a lot of sand. There were palm trees, but if there was grass, mostly it was brown, especially compared to the grass in Georgia. So it was like I had this, even as a little child, this thing about as soon as we'd get to a certain area, it was almost like to me how in the Wizard of Oz, it's hi Wendy, hi, good to see you. In the Wizard of Oz, it's all in black and white, and then when she gets to Oz, it's in color. Now, as a little child, I didn't recognize that happened. I just knew it was more gorgeous in Oz, right? And that's how I felt when we lived in Florida and we would go to visit people in Georgia, some of our friends and family. And it was like we'd get to this one place and suddenly it was like Oz, where everything was more brilliant and bright. So I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but it was something that really, really intrigued me as a child. But I've always been this person that I loved the difference in colors and the way the light would hit things and change the colors. I was very intrigued with all of that. And I guess that's why I became an artist. And not that I do a lot with it now, I'll be perfectly honest with you. That's one of the things that I'm working on adding back into my things that I just do for fun, right? So how are you this morning, Wendy? Thank you for being here. Give me a second. I am going to go ahead and share our affirmation. All right. Let's do this thing. All right. So our affirmation for today is I am the conscious architect of my days, choosing empowerment, welcoming joy, and opening every door to possibility. Now, that's just life itself, right? It doesn't matter if you're in business for yourself or you work for someone else, but you can be the architect of your days. And it's important for us to recognize that because we want to not leave this up to other people. We want to make sure we are being our architects, right? Hold on, let's see here. I lived in Madison for 3 years and loved it. There was 4 beautiful seasons. I moved to Oklahoma. The grass was gray. I missed Madison, I bet. I know it's amazing how much we even pick up when we're young about things like that. And as an adult, sometimes it can be quite startling when we recognize the difference in places. But so, do you go back to Madison and see Madison? I love to go visit Florida, but I never want to live there because to me not to say there's anything wrong with Florida because I know a lot of people that live there and love it, love it. I love to visit. One of the things is like, well, let me just share. When I was a teenager, I worked at Six Flags Over Georgia. I always loved Six Flags. It was the place to go and have fun. Well, I worked there 1 year and it ruined it for me. I never really felt the same fun when I would go back because it was a hard ass job to work there. I mean, it was long hours. I worked the swing shift. I worked in food service. And I just felt like it was hell, to be perfectly honest with you. It was the first job a paying job I ever had. I'll say that. And it was, like I said, very long hours. And one of the perks they gave you was you could come visit the park anytime you wanted to, and it didn't cost you anything. Well, it was the last place I wanted to be on my day off. And I never got back that magic. Before I worked there, it was magic. But after I worked there, no, magic was gone. It's kind of like in Oz when she starts seeing the man behind the curtain and all of a sudden the magic is gone, right? That's the way it felt. And so if we're leaving things up to other people, we're kind of like giving our magic away. And it's time for us to really take ownership and become the architect, the conscious architect of our days. What are your thoughts there, Wendy? And I'm glad you're doing well. Checking to see. All right. And one of the things that's really important for us to utilize to have be our own architect, and is that we choose how to react to things, right? Because things happen all the time. That we're human. This is Earth, things are going to happen. And, oh, good, Wendy. I'm sure. I'm so glad. So things happen, like I said. And so we get to choose how we react to the things that happen. We get to choose what we focus on in our life. We get to choose where to place our time. So, you know how we talk, the people that in the financial world, they talk about compound interest, right? Well, that happens in everyday life. We compound interest. We're steadily upgrading our reality from default to deliberate because I prefer to be in control of that instead of it being someone else. Now, I remember there was a time in my life that I kind of liked the fact that it was somebody else because then I could blame somebody else for what wasn't working in my life. Because it was a very difficult thing to say, well, this shit isn't working, but it's my fault. That was a hard place to go. And it took me a while, to be honest with you. But the more I thought about it, if I had someone to blame, then that meant I had no control. And I preferred to be able to say, I want things to be different, and I could do something different. Does that make sense? So our empowerment that we're talking about is a daily choice. And sometimes it feels like a moment by moment choice. It's not a lucky break. It's not some gift somebody else gave us. It is we made a daily choice. Ah, beautiful, Wendy, beautiful. And the thing that comes to my mind is, there can be, we've talked about this many, many times before. There can be two people that are involved in the exact same situation. One of them sees a way of blaming the world and reasons why they can't do the things they want to do. But the other person sees it as an obstacle that they can overcome, they can learn from, and they can even be better. It's like, what is it, the old saying that if you're, all right. So two people in a room and there's a pile of crap there. One of them is trying to figure out what the hell is wrong. Why is all this crap here? And the other person is in there digging, trying to find the pony. So it's whether you can go through the crap and find the gold, find the pony. You have to be willing to go through a little crap to find the pony sometimes, right? But when you know there's a pony there, it makes it worth it. Well, so to speak, right? It is moment by moment. It is thinking and figuring things out, looking at your choices and deciding what is best. Yes, yes. And knowing that you get to make the choice. Because a lot of people think, well, this is just my lot in life. This is the way things are. This is how I am. This is how the world is. And right? But when you realize that if you don't like the shit you're going through, you can take a step back and say, wait a minute, I'm in charge here. How can I be just a little bit different? How can I react different? How can I feel different so that I change the stuff around me that I'm going through? That's an empowered place, right? All right, so let's jump to our journal prompt. Let me see real quick. Trying to make sure I don't leave anybody out. All right, our journal prompt. Where will you intentionally flex your power today? I'm asking you, Wendy, since you're the one here talking. And how can you infuse that moment with joy that widens the horizon of what's possible? Because let's just be honest. Why would we even be doing the stuff if we didn't find some joy and pleasure from it, right? Because life is not meant to be a drudgery, even though that's the way it is a lot of times, right? I mean, we have these goals and these aspirations of what we want to do in our life. And so we have these tasks that we do, but how can we make them fun And if they're not fun, how can we figure out a different way to go about things so that we have joy in our life? Because the worst thing in the world to me is to hear someone who is living and working just for the week that or the 2 weeks that they have our vacation. And I just talked to someone recently that that's the way she lived most of her life was, well, I'm going to work all this time so that I can have fun these 2 weeks. And that's when you think about the amount of time that the person spends to get those 2 weeks in misery, not a good way, right? And luckily she came to and made a different decision. So I don't know everybody that is watching and listening, whether you're here live and you're joining in the conversation or you're just sitting back and watching or you're watching the replay. I want you to really look at your life. Do you have more joy in it? Or do you have more task and drudgery and things to get to the joy? I have to do an oil change and finish applications. I need to find time to read and take a walk and find joy out of this day. Amen. Yes. I love that. And you need to do an oil change and finish applications. So it's like, how can you do those two things and find some piece of joy in it? So like, for me, like it's time for me to do an oil change as well. So I had thought, I was thinking about this morning. So great minds think alike here, Wendy. So I was thinking about it this morning that, I'm writing a book right now. I just have one that I've published on Kindle, and it's a parable. But now I'm writing a chapter book that is it's a fiction apocalyptic novel. And I realized the other day that I thought I was getting real close to having enough word count, but no, I'm only halfway there. So it's one of the things that I want to spend more time on, but sometimes it's like, where do I find the time for adding more to this? So I thought, okay, this will be perfect because I get so into these characters and they wake me up sometimes at night with thoughts and dreaming about them and different things that is going on in the book that I have these ideas about, right? So I'm going to take my laptop with me when I go to get my oil changed, which probably won't happen till like Monday because I'll have more time then. But the thing is, I'm going to take my laptop with me so that during the time that I have to sit there and wait, that it's going to be me engrossed in this book that I'm loving writing, right? So what can you find to do while you're there for the oil change that'll bring you joy? And, if you're a person that loves to write, maybe you want to read and you take your favorite book and you read. Maybe you scroll on social media and get joy from that. Whatever it is, when you have a task to do, because we still have tasks, right? I mean, if we don't get our oil changed, it's not really good for our vehicle, right? So we want to make sure we're still doing the things to make our life pleasant in the fact that we have a working vehicle, right? But how can we make it even more fun? And then finishing up the applications, maybe you can have some music that you love playing in the background so that it helps to inspire you a little bit. I don't know. Those are just thoughts that came to me. So you'll have to let me know and then find time to read, which you can do that when you're at getting your oil changed. Take a walk and find joy. Okay, here we go. Hold on. I keep having to pick the phone up because I can't see that far. I'm going to do a task and then do something fun. I could read during the oil change. Yes. Could listen to podcasts while you clean. Yes. Amen. Amen. Ah, beautiful, Wendy. And, we can do that every single day by making a choice with the task that we have. And how can we have more fun in the process? So you're doing great, Wendy. I love it. I love it. All right, so I'm going to go back to our affirmation. I am the conscious architect of my days, choosing empowerment, welcoming joy, and opening every door to possibility. Delicious, right? Opening every door to possibility. Because we don't see possibilities when we're closed off and we're in task mode. It's when we get into the relaxed and creative and happy place that our possibilities show up. How to make things more fun. Yes, yes. So write this on your index card, the screensaver on your phone, put it on a sticky note, put it somewhere that you're going to see it today. So if you're working from home or if you're just home today, put it on a piece of paper and stick it to the fridge. Because how many times do we go to the fridge during the day, right? We do it all day long, right? Put it on a piece of paper and stick it to the door in your bathroom. You go to the bathroom every day to wash your hands or take a shower or to use the facilities, right? So put it somewhere that today you are really focused on being this conscious architect of your days. Because when you can find this empowerment, oh man, right? Because joy is the fuel, not just the trophy. So one of the things that's important to remember is that our active ingredient that amplifies creativity, resilience, and connection is to treat joy like espresso shots for the soul and sip it frequently throughout the day. So like Wendy said, when you can find joy in even the little things that you do, amazing, right? So if today, just even today, this is a good practice day, if you're doing something and you think, and you have that feeling inside of you, like, I can't wait to finish this so that I can get on to something else, stop for a moment and look at how it could be more fun. Because the thing is that, and we've talked about this before, is that our brains are all the time scanning for evidence of what we believe is possible. And so sometimes we pre-decide what's going to be unpleasant task and what are going to be fun task. And so we can change that and we can decide that the possibilities are endless and that we can start spotting these little hidden places, these pathways of what we're doing and ideas that we have. And we can see how they could have more fun instilled in them. So when we're looking for fun in something, we can find fun in something. Remember, what we look for, we find. So our possibility radar, expanding your field of vision, illustrating exactly how things can be more fun. It could be even as simple as you've got to clean house. Well, you don't have to. You decide you prefer having a clean house. So let's start with that. We decide that having a clean house feels good. And I'll share, the other day, I was really needing to, I've got the hardwood floors and I've got a dog and cats. And so there's hair on the floor, right? And it's like, oh. And I was like, I hated the vacuuming and the mopping of the floor. And so a lot of times I'd vacuum it and I'd avoid the mopping because, So the other day I decided, okay, I'm going to go ahead and give this floor a really good overhaul. And I'm going to clean it really well. And So I vacuumed it, I mopped it, I did the shine stuff at the end of it, and it really didn't take me that long. But the thing that I focused on was how much nicer it was going to be as I was doing this cleaning, right? And then I kind of danced around a little bit and did some squats, and I did these different things that kind of made it feel like it had more than one thing involved. And then afterwards, every time I stepped on that floor, I thought, oh, this just feels so much better. So we choose, we don't have to clean. I've been places where people don't clean at all, and it's like, right? So we choose how we want our environment to be. And then we make a decision that we're going to do the task, but we're going to find a way to make it more fun. So part of the way I made it more fun was dancing. I had music playing. I was singing, way off key, but I was singing and I was having fun. I was doing some squats. Every now and then I would stop and do something else, and then I'd go back to it. But the main thing was I was focused on, oh, it's going to be so nice to have this floor so clean and shiny. And it made it a very different task because I chose to be conscious about what I was doing and why I was doing it and how I could make it better. All right, so then back to our journal prompt. Where will you intentionally flex your power today? It is a nice feeling when it is done. It is nice to have a clean environment. It makes it feel more like a home. Yes, a home that you can just like breathe in, right? And relax in. I feel like my home is my sanctuary. It's the place I can go and just be and relax. And when I realize sometimes that doing that, mopping and cleaning that floor, as trivial as it sounds, it just made the whole space feel better. And so one of the things I'm focused on too is doing some decluttering. And I declutter all the time because it gets cluttered very easily, right? And so I have a container in my closet that when something doesn't fit anymore, I throw it in there. When I'm decluttering a room and I see this thing's out of place and then I don't know where it goes, I think, well, maybe it doesn't go anywhere. So then I'll put it in that container. And so those are the things that I donate to charity. And there's a couple of organizations near me that they actually come and pick things up. And you might have something like that in your area as well. But the thing is that they message and they say, I'm going to be in your area this day. Do you want to donate? And say yes. And so then I just have my stuff sitting outside ready for them. And so I'm continuously donating. And it helps with the taxes, right? Because you get your little slip that you did a donation. But more than anything, it helps to open up your space of possibilities. Little things make a difference. I'm decluttering now too. It does feel good. I'm working towards everything has a place. Yes, yes. And I used to I can be a little bit of a clutter bug because I will sit things where I can see them because I know I want to do something with them. But then it ends up like I got a lot of things sitting there that is wanting my attention. So I'm constantly looking at how can I make this better. And like in my office, to other people, it probably is very cluttered because I have file folders over here. I have folders over there, but I've discovered that I have a different style of organization. For me, organization means that some things I have to have on my desk because I know I'm going to be using them throughout the week. The other things are in folders over there and over there so that I can get to them easily. But if I put all the things that are on my desk in a folder, then I spend a lot of time searching for the things that I need right now. And I've discovered that that's okay. I don't have to put them in a folder so that my desk is completely bare. Feels really foreign when that does happen. But every time I do something like that, because some guru, some expert has told me that that's the way my desk is supposed to look, that every time I do that, then I end up wasting valuable time searching for the thing that I had sitting out here for my attention. So I think we have to learn ourselves and what helps us to stay on task better, right? Because we could be so organized that we end up being a slave to the organization, right? And, that works for some people. Like I've got some friends that they have everything on a spreadsheet. They have everything in these ledgers. Heck, my niece is amazing where she has these notebooks and these folders for everything, right? And she's very good about that. But me, that doesn't work for me. Individualized, yes, yes. And, I think that a lot of this comes from we start learning ourselves and what empowers us the most, right? We don't have to adhere to what somebody else has told us is supposed to work, because that maybe that works for them, doesn't mean it works for us. And so I think that we have to do our due diligence and we have to say, okay, that worked for them. How can I take that and make it my own, right? Yes, beautiful. Thank you, Wendy. That's true. Do things that work for us and that it's different for everyone. Yes, it is. Um, and that's why there's so many different types of organization when it comes to the organization part. And I when I was a kid, I was taught that you clean the house this way. I used to have a cleaning business years ago, and I could go clean somebody else's house and I could clean it, pretty quickly. But I had this method of exactly where I started. And it's different doing my own home, because in somebody else's home, if they got a bunch of clutter sitting around, you move the clutter off, you clean everything, you put their clutter back because it ain't your clutter, right? I had a lot of people that it was like, I'd spend a lot of time removing things from counters and from tables and all these places so I could clean the surface, but then I just put them back and it was theirs to deal with. But when you're doing your own, you deal with the clutter as you're cleaning, right? So it's a very different process, but we can choose how we want to make our environment. And the thing that I know is that, excuse me, hold on just a second. That if your space is exceptionally cluttered, it means there's some clutter going on in here that needs to be addressed. And so sometimes it's hard to completely start addressing it here. But if you start working on your outer environment, it starts opening up things so that it's easier to address what's going on in here. So there's a method to the madness. And anybody that's watching, listening with the replay, whatever it is, and if you're needing some help with all this clutter that may be in your brain or in your thoughts, your feelings, that you're not sure how to get to a more calm place, reach out and we can have a conversation. And if I'm sure there'll be at least one amazing epiphany you're going to come away with just from our conversation. And then if you choose to work with me to go further, great. But if you don't, that's no big deal. But I would be able to help you with at least one thing, but usually there's more things that come through that conversation. So just let me know if you want to have a conversation. We can do it. I promise. Decluttering to healing. Yes, yes. So as I always recommend, get out your notebook or your journal, put the date, the affirmation, the journal prompt, and then you've got it all written down. I want you to say it out loud to yourself and then set a timer for 10 to 15 minutes and just be silent. You're not shooting a mantra of all the things on the, in your mind. No, you're just focusing on your breath. You're decluttering your thoughts in that moment and in that 10 to 15 minutes, right? And as you notice that the clutter keeps showing back up or the thoughts start going somewhere else, you just come back to your breath. And then when your timer goes off, you just write whatever shows up. And it may not even sound like it has a doggone thing to do with the journal prompt. And that's okay, because I'm telling you, it does in some way or form have something to do with it. You just might not know it yet. So, where will you intentionally flex your power today? And how can you infuse that moment with a burst of joy that widens the horizon of what's possible? And then just write out what shows up. No critiquing, no judging, just write. And then when you're finished, it's just for you. You can go back and look and see what came up. Where will you intentionally flex your power today? And then how can you infuse that moment with a burst of song, of joy, of, I like to say that life is a symphony, and there's these musical notes that are just playing out all around us. All of our vibration and everything is creating these musical notes. And as you're looking at the notes that are playing, sometimes maybe there's a note that's off a little bit, but it's still a beautiful symphony. And all you have to do is notice it, give it a little love, and then change it to a more magnificent note. And so as you're flexing this power today, start looking at, this just helps me. So, and like I said, it may not help you, but if it does, beautiful. But sometimes when I notice that my thoughts are a little scattered or I'm not getting into my creative mode the way I'd like to, I can just sit and imagine that my body's vibrating, because it is, right? But then I start seeing musical notes, and I'm not a musical person. I don't know why this always makes me feel good, but I see these musical notes just floating around in my imagination, right? It's almost like if you close your eyes and if you think of the alphabet, and you can see you can imagine, sometimes you can't see it, but you can imagine the letters and what they look like, right? Or the numbers, what they look like, right? So you can imagine musical notes. We've all seen, music written out, even if we're not a musician. So you just imagine there's these notes just floating all around, and you can just smile knowing that the notes are a representation of your life and your vibration. And the more beautiful the note, the beautiful your life. And so just start imagining how bright they can be. And like I said, I don't read music or anything like that. So the notes that I see in my imagination are probably not creating anything as far as musically, but to me, they're creating so much space within me to start seeing the creativity around me. And you may have a totally different way to do that, to get into that creative space, that imaginative space of, let it play, let it play. So I would love to hear, what is it that you do? What do you imagine in your mind that helps you do this? I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. Where are we on time? Oh. All right. So let me check one more thing real quick. All right. So this has been fun. Thank you, Wendy, for being on here and chatting with me. I appreciate you more than you know. And have an amazingly joyful, intentional day. And I can't wait to hear how things go for you as you play with this today. So let me know, Wendy. Let me know. All right. So I'm going to end here. You have, like I said, just shared with Wendy, and I'm sharing with you. Have a beautiful, intentional day of empowerment. Mwah.